Without question, one of the most critical elected jobs in our region and anywhere in the country, District Attorney of the City of Philadelphia. And tonight, the incumbent Seth Williams and the challenger Danny Alvarez are standing by in their first and only debate of this campaign. Right now, right here on Voice of Reason. Well, in a few weeks, the people of Philadelphia will be electing a district attorney, a job that requires a lot of skill and tremendous challenge in a big city of 1.6 million people like the city of Philadelphia. And tonight on Voice of Reason, our first and only debate of this campaign between the incumbent Seth Williams, seeking his second term in office. Immediately before becoming DA, he was in private practice. Prior to that, he served 10 years as an assistant district attorney in Philadelphia. And the Republican challenger in this race is Danny Alvarez. He's a criminal defense attorney, former assistant district attorney, serving 8 years as a prosecutor, has announced a self-imposed term limit of 1 4-year term. And thank you for joining us. We will begin with the incumbent district attorney, Seth Williams. 1-year term limit, that's pretty interesting. Would you limit your terms to 2?
No,
not necessarily.
No, I'm looking forward to getting reelected by the citizens of Philadelphia to continue the work that I and the 600 assistant district attorneys and our staff have done, the achievements that we have made. We've made tremendous strides in reducing gun violence in the city of Philadelphia, and I look forward to continuing that. So no, I'm not going to stop at the first 4 years. We have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to working with the citizens of Philadelphia to continue the progress that we've made.
Well, you are seeking terms. I'm just saying, would you limit it to 2 terms?
No, I mean, I'm not going to state that. In Delaware County, they have a term limit, but in the rest of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there are no term limits for district attorneys.
Now, Danny Alvarez, why a term limit? I mean, what if you got into office and you were doing some good things and you were accomplishing things and you wanted to continue your program? You're sort of limiting yourself, aren't you?
Look at the city. For the last 50 or 60 years, you have people who are in office perpetually, and it's been a disservice to the common person out on the street. So when I get elected, I will do 4 years, and that's it. I think it's very important, and I think constant incumbency has become death to democracy, especially in Philadelphia.
You don't think you need some time to accomplish things in office?
I think 4 years is a good amount of time to do everything possible to combat public corruption, to combat the violence on the streets. And I think that we have a long ways to go, especially in public corruption. What
do you think the major challenges are in the next 4 years in Philadelphia's criminal prosecution arena? Is the backlog still a problem?
No, it isn't, as a matter of fact. When I took over the district attorney's office, we had the lowest conviction rate of the 40 largest urban areas. 59% of our felonies were being dismissed at the preliminary hearing. We've turned that around quickly as a result of community-based prosecution. What I see as the biggest challenge moving forward is continuing to bring down the rate of gun violence. Now, gun violence is down 18% in the city of Philadelphia this year. Homicides are down almost 30%. And I know we're going to talk about why that is and the collaboration we've created with the police department. But that continues to be my #1 focus, is reducing the gun violence in our city.
Now, with gun violence down, do you see challenges ahead in other areas?
Certainly. I think that there's still much to be done in regards to gun violence. And in fact, nationally, the homicide rate is getting to the point that it very well may be the lowest homicide rate this country has seen nationally in about 100 years. So this is a national trend, which I do believe that the district attorney's office right now is lagging behind. If it's down 30%, it should be down 40%. It should be down even more. I think that there's a lot to be done. I think that programs such as the Gun Stat program is good, but it's only implemented in a couple of neighborhoods in the city. It should and must be expanded. And again, I would have to say, it really all starts with public corruption and the fact that nothing has been done with public corruption. Every single dime that is wasted in municipal corruption is a dime that is converted into a bullet out on our streets. I think that it's very important.
So you're comparing municipal corruption to gun violence?
Absolutely. When you have limited resources, when there's limited resources, no matter where in government it may be, you have to be a good steward with that money. And if our politicians and our public officials are not good stewards with our money, then we have a right to investigate, prosecute, and root out public corruption. That will save insurmountable amounts of money that could be used towards public safety. Absolutely. You can't have one without the other.
Well, what's the record on corruption investigations? This
So
is
Larry,
new. That usually the local DA sort of takes him or herself out of it because of political links. Is that correct?
You're right. My predecessor basically abdicated any responsibility to investigating and prosecuting municipal corruption.
But she gave it to the feds.
That's correct. But you left out in giving my bio. I was the Inspector General of the City of Philadelphia for almost 2.5 years, investigating corruption, fraud, and waste. And when I became the District Attorney, I've created a very robust special investigation unit. I brought like the dream team. I brought Pat Blessington, who did all the bonus gate in Harrisburg. I brought Frank Fina, Mark Costanza. So we have a significant amount of cases now before our grand jury where we are investigating corruption. And very soon we'll have a press conference to talk about that. But when I talk to Philadelphians on the street, yeah, they're concerned about corruption and bad politicians and the excessive use of force by police officers. And we're investigating that more than ever before. But what people talk about is gun violence. They talk about witnesses being intimidated. They talk about their children being afraid to play at the playground. And so that is our priority, but we're not abdicating our responsibility on corruption.
What kind of corruption are you talking about?
Municipal corruption. I'm talking about politicians who look at tax dollars as if it's a cookie jar for them to go in and have a snack. That's not right. I mean, the bottom line is this: you cannot have safe streets if our government is robbing the taxpayer blind. And that's a fact.
Well, wait a second. When you say government, that's a lot of people. Are you referring to any particular area of government?
Well, you can open up the Philadelphia Inquirer on any given day, and what you'll see is that there's somebody else who's being investigated by the federal government. Now, I understand that, you know, my opponent brings up the fact that Lynn Abraham, you know, passed things off to the federal establishment. I think that as a city, we need to clean up our own house. I think also the fact that he does have this dream team, as he called it, why did it take until his 4th year in his first term to actually have this dream team? And not only that, where are the indictments in regards to public corruption? And I'm referring specifically to non-police corruption. So in other words, I'm not talking about a police officer who's being indicted or prosecuted for corruption, which should happen if there's bad cops. However, where is the indictments for public officials? I mean, there's one of two options. It could be either if there is no corruption in Philadelphia and all that smoke that we see coming from City Hall is just an illusion, or there is public corruption in City Hall and other parts of government, and nothing is being done about it. I believe that the last 4 years, nothing has been done about it.
You agree with that?
I don't agree with that. I mean, Philadelphians, of course, we want to make sure our tax dollars are spent correctly and that we are good stewards. I, however, believe that most people who go into public service go in for it for the right reasons. We've got tremendous public servants in District Council 33 and 47 and elected officials. Now, some people do the wrong thing, and we're investigating them and we're prosecuting them. But again, when I'm out at the bus stop, when I'm on the L talking to people, they're concerned, Larry, about the gun violence. They're concerned about the fact that 1 out of 4 American women are raped before the age of 18 or the victims of sexual abuse, that 1 out of 6 boys are the victims of child sexual abuse. And we're doing things to address that and to prevent crime. And so yes, we have to address municipal corruption. And I'm not abdicating all of those cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Attorney General's Office. We're investigating them.
You also delivered quite a broad brush in your stroke there about corruption. So we know there's corruption. There's always widespread corruption in government everywhere. In fact, we just did a story a couple of weeks ago, a show on with Brad Bumstead of the Pittsburgh newspaper, did a thing called 100 Years of Corruption.
Sure.
But the question is, are you suggesting that all elements of city government are corrupt?
I believe that we have to look at government realistically, which is a big reason why I would have a self-imposed term limit. There's a lot of good people who want to get into government for the right reasons. However, time and time again, human nature is that people, when they have a little taste of power, tend to abuse that power, and they want to stick around too long.
But you have an innuendo here. Are you suggesting that the district attorney is looking the other way? Because it sounds to me like you are. But you're not sort of, you're sort of in the middle. You're saying not enough is done, but it's historically a tradition here that when items of corruption come up in city government, if you go back to Arlen Specter, Ed Rendell as district attorney, they generally investigate it, but they do turn it over to an independent agency because they don't want to tread in waters that they may be involved politically in.
That's the wonderful thing about where I'm at today. I do not have powerful friends. I do not have powerful organizations backing me. I am literally running for district attorney as a father of 2 kids and a taxpayer, okay? So in other words, I don't have that many political friends, if any. Quite frankly, I couldn't even come up with one right now. So I am free to do as I believe is the right thing to do.
What about the Republican Party?
If they are corrupt, I will investigate.
I'm not suggesting they are, but
If
you know
there's
they have a
somebody-
lot of contracts. They run the school board. Their record on the School Reform Commission has not been exemplary.
I don't care what political party you are, because political affiliation doesn't mean a darn thing to me when it comes to my children's future. So if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party, Purple Party, I don't care. I will investigate and prosecute and root out corruption. I think it needs to be done.
Okay, we've covered I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's important, though, I think, Larry, is that at its core, the public has to believe that the criminal justice system is fair. That's what validates this system. So I agree with my Republican opponent. Yes, we have to investigate that. And I think by us showing that we've prosecuted Monsignor William Lynn, we're the first district attorney's office in America to go after a person, a member of the Catholic hierarchy, who didn't abuse children himself, but shielded pedophiles from prosecution. We went after Dr. Kermit Gosnell. We've gone after all these people. More police have been prosecuted for excessive use of force and misconduct than ever before. But that's a very small percentage of the cases. But my Republican opponent is right, and I believe that we have to continue prosecuting those cases so the public knows that we're not just going after the corner boy selling weed. But again, the biggest problem that Philadelphians have is with violence, and we have to do all that we can to prevent crime and all that we can to reduce recidivism.
You know, I'll start with you this time. There's an interesting question out there. You mentioned children and schools. There is still a major problem in many of the schools of Philadelphia in terms of children going to school in fear.
Yes.
And the School Reform Commission, which, as I said, does not have an exemplary record of teaching the children of Philadelphia, has not completely, with the new superintendent, I know everybody likes the new superintendent, the concept of protecting our children so they can walk, and I know they have their own police department and all that business, their own security force, so they can walk into the schools and learn without fear.
Right. So, Larry, that's one of the most important points that we have to make. That there's a new paradigm of what it means to be an American prosecutor. The paradigm is we do all we can to prevent crime. So I was proud. Yesterday, I was with 5 other district attorneys at State Correctional Institution Chester, not talking about building more prisons, but talking about how we can prevent having to send people there by investing in early childhood education. 53% of the public high school students in Philadelphia drop out. You are 8 times more likely to go to state prison if you're a high school dropout, but even more tragically, Larry, you are 20 times more likely to be a homicide victim in Philadelphia if you drop out. So I hired a person. Some people got mad at me. I'm spending about $70,000 a year on a person to work on truancy reduction. But we have to work with the schools. We have to work with Dr. Haidt. We have to work with the Department of Human Services. We have to work with the police and Judge Doherty at Family Court to keep kids in school. That's the #1 indicator if a person is going to be arrested. So I believe we have to put our money where our mouths are. And we have to do all that we can to make sure the schools are safe. We're supporting safe corridors. I've gone out on schools that we have partnerships with to walk the safe corridors. But we have to do all that we can to reduce truancy. That's being smart on crime.
Now, in your view as a potential district attorney, what can you do specifically to prevent crime around and near the schools that prevents a child from walking to school, that makes a parent nervous about sending their child to that school? What can you do beyond the powers of your office, within the powers of your office?
I think Mr. Williams brings up a good point insofar as we do have to put our money where our mouths are. The only problem is before it gets to our mouths, our politicians are putting it in their back pockets. So again, we have to attack public corruption. But as far as children's safety, what I would say is this. There's 2 things of that, Larry. Mr. Williams is talking about speaking to people, but I've had the opportunity to meet thousands and thousands of people while campaigning every single day. And what I've heard and who I've spoken to were a couple of school police officers who tell me that right now the schools are not safe and that apparently a lot of things that are going on at the schools are going unreported. As district attorney, I will not allow that to happen. If there's a crime at a school, it will be reported and children will be safer insofar as we'll crack down on it. I agree, it's deplorable. We live in a city where a single mom living in a tough neighborhood who's raising her kids the best she can has to worry about her kids crossing paths with a drug dealer just to get to the schoolhouse gate. I understand that. But the reality is this, we got to put the politics aside and start cracking down on some of these kids who are running reckless in our schools. Now, my experience in the juvenile justice system, not only as a prosecutor, but as a law clerk for a fine judge that's over there, is that there are some very, very good judges over there. I think that it may have been in the past, and I hope that's not the case anymore, that it wasn't where they put the cream of the crop. I can speak, in regards to the judge that I clerk for. She was the cream of the crop, and she cared very much about the kids that she oversaw in the cases that she was, making decisions on. But the reality is we have not only a crime and justice problem, but quite frankly, maybe it's a little outside the scope of a district attorney, but a cultural problem as well. That really started with 50 or 60 years of one-party rule in Philadelphia that has taught the people that the government is your mother and father, not your mother and father.
Well, prior to that 50 or 60 years, there was about 50 or 60 years of government by the Republican Party as well. So it's really who sits in the office, and there was certainly corruption under investigation at that time too. But one final question on the schools. The School Reform Commission was created by and for the Republican Party, okay, for the most part, and much as the Parking Authority was. So basically, whether you're in office or out of office, can you work within your own party to tell those guys to fix the boat, right the boat?
Absolutely. And if they're doing things that are unlawful, I have no problem whatsoever as a father of two kids to do something about it.